I woke up to a cold hand stroking my hair. My husband was asleep beside me. Terrified, I turned over, and saw a woman with hollow eyes whisper, "You're in my bed." I screamed, but she just smiled. "You'll be leaving soon," she murmured. The next day, I found my own tombstone in the backyard. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post on Reddit, let alone in a place like this. But after what happened, I need to get it out. Maybe someone out there has answers. Maybe someone's been through something similar. Or maybe I'm just going crazy. My name is Sarah. I'm 42, married to a man named Mark, and we live in a small town in upstate New York. We moved into this house about 6 months ago. It's an old Victorian-style home, built in the late 1800s, with creaky floors and drafty windows. But it had charm, and we thought it would be the perfect place to start fresh. The first few months were uneventful. We spent our weekends painting, fixing up the garden, and exploring the nearby woods. Life was good. Normal. Then, about a month ago, things started to change. It began with small things. I'd find objects moved from where I left them. A book on the coffee table would be on the kitchen counter. A mug I left in the sink would be back in the cupboard. Mark swore he didn't touch them, and I believed him. Still, I brushed it off. Maybe I was just forgetful. Then came the noises. At night, I'd hear footsteps upstairs when we were both in bed. Soft, slow creaks, like someone was walking down the hallway. Mark said it was just the house settling. Old houses make noises, he said. But these weren't random creaks. They were deliberate. Rhythmic. One night, I decided to investigate. I waited until I heard the footsteps, then got out of bed and crept into the hallway. It was dark, but I didn't want to turn on the lights and scare off whatever, or whoever, was there. I followed the sound to the guest bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and peered inside. Nothing. The room was empty, just as we left it. The bed was made, the window closed. I stood there for a moment, listening. The house was silent. I turned to leave, but as I did, I caught a glimpse of something in the mirror above the dresser. A shadow. It moved quickly, darting out of sight. I spun around, heart pounding, but the room was still empty. I told Mark about it the next morning. He laughed it off, said I was letting my imagination get the best of me. Maybe he was right. But then came the dreams. They started a week ago. Vivid, unsettling dreams that left me shaken. In the first one, I was walking through the woods behind our house. The trees were dense, the air thick with fog. I felt like I was being watched. I came upon a clearing, and in the center stood a woman. She was tall, with long black hair and hollow eyes. She wore a tattered white dress, stained with dirt and something darker. She looked at me and whispered, "You're in my bed." I woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing. Mark was asleep beside me, oblivious. The dreams continued, each more disturbing than the last. In one, I was lying in our bed, unable to move, as the woman stood over me, stroking my hair. In another, I was digging in the backyard, unearthing bones. Then, 2 nights ago, it happened. I woke up to a cold hand stroking my hair. My eyes snapped open, and I turned over. There she was. The woman from my dreams, standing beside the bed. Her eyes were hollow, empty sockets that seemed to suck in the light. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her mouth was twisted into a smile. "You're in my bed," she whispered. I screamed. Mark jolted awake, looking around in confusion. "What's wrong?" he asked. "She was here," I said, pointing to the spot where she stood. "The woman. She was right there." He looked at me, concern in his eyes. "There's no one here, Sarah." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I went into the backyard to clear my head. The air was crisp, the sky overcast. I walked to the edge of the yard, near the old oak tree, and that's when I saw it. A tombstone. It was small, weathered, and partially buried in the ground. I knelt down and brushed away the dirt. My name was on it. Sarah Thompson. Born 1983. Died 2025. I stared at it, disbelief washing over me. This had to be a joke. A sick, twisted joke. I ran back inside and told Mark. He followed me out, but when we got there, the tombstone was gone. I swear it was there. I don't know what's happening. I'm scared. I feel like I'm losing my mind. If anyone has any idea what this could be, please, help me. Update: I've been trying to make sense of everything. I started researching the history of our house and found that it was built by a man named Jonathan Whitmore in 1887. He lived here with his wife, Margaret, and their daughter, Eliza. Eliza died in 1902 at the age of 19. The cause of death was listed as unknown. I found an old newspaper article that mentioned a series of disappearances in the area around that time. Young women, all around Eliza's age, vanished without a trace. There were rumors that Jonathan was involved, but nothing was ever proven. I also found a journal in the attic, hidden beneath the floorboards. It belonged to Margaret. In it, she wrote about strange occurrences in the house, objects moving, whispers in the night, and a woman in white who appeared in her dreams. She believed the house was cursed. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm being watched. The dreams are getting worse. Last night, I dreamt that I was buried alive, the woman standing over my grave, smiling. I woke up gasping for air. I'm scared to sleep. I'm scared to be alone. If anyone has any advice, please, I'm desperate. I reached up to touch my neck. It was gone. The locket I wore every day, the one Mark gave me for our 10th anniversary. The same one now resting on a skeleton in a coffin buried in our backyard, was no longer around my neck. I staggered back, dizzy. I dropped the shovel. Mark stood frozen, his face pale, staring into the open grave. How is this possible? I asked, my voice shaking. Mark didn't answer right away. He just stared at the skeleton, then at the locket. Finally, he said, we need to call the police. But we didn't. We filled the grave back in. I know how that sounds, but neither of us could explain any of this. What would we even say? Hi, we found a skeleton in our backyard, wearing my wife's necklace that she suddenly doesn't have anymore. It felt like a trap. Like whoever, or whatever, put that body there wanted us to tell someone. And that it wouldn't go well if we did. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. The woman with the hollow eyes. I started seeing her during the day, too. Reflections in windows. Flickers in the corner of my eye. But it wasn't just her. I started seeing other things. A child standing in the hallway, staring at the wall. A man in a suit hanging by his neck from the rafters in the attic. Sometimes, I'd hear voices, low and muttering. Not English. Just soft, jumbled sounds. Like chanting. I recorded the audio on my phone one night. When I played it back the next day, all I heard was static, except for one clear word, repeated several times. Replace. I asked Mark if he heard it. He nodded, slowly, but wouldn't talk about it. That's when he started acting strange. He wouldn't look me in the eyes. He stayed up late, sitting in the living room, staring at the fireplace. He barely ate. I'd find him in the guest room, standing in the dark, not saying a word. One morning, I woke up and he wasn't in bed. I found him in the basement, digging a hole. Mark, I said, stepping down the wooden stairs. What are you doing? He didn't look up. She told me you have to go. My blood went cold. Who told you? He stopped digging and finally looked at me. His eyes were blank, glassy. She did. I backed up slowly. You need to come upstairs. You're not well. I'm not the one who's not supposed to be here, he said, and then he smiled, this strange, stretched smile that didn't look like his. I ran. I locked the basement door behind me and called my sister, who lives 3 hours away. I told her I needed to stay with her for a while. I didn't say why. She agreed. I packed a bag and left before Mark came back up. I didn't sleep at my sister's. I couldn't. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept checking behind me, expecting to see that hollow-eyed woman, or worse, Mark, with that empty look in his eyes. But even away from the house, the dreams didn't stop. The most recent one was the worst. I was back in the house, standing at the edge of that same open grave. But this time, it wasn't a skeleton inside. It was me. And standing over the grave was Mark. And her. She had her hand on his shoulder. They were both smiling. I woke up screaming. When I went into the bathroom, I looked in the mirror and noticed something strange, something I swear wasn't there before. A long, red scratch down my cheek. I didn't remember scratching myself. I didn't have long nails. My sister saw it too and asked what happened. I said it must have been the cat. She doesn't have a cat. I needed answers. I went back to town. Mark wasn't home. I didn't tell him I was coming back. I wanted to check the attic again. That journal. There had to be more. I found it under the floorboard where I'd hidden it. This time, I read more carefully. One entry caught my eye. January 12, 1903, I woke to find Eliza standing over me. But it wasn't her. She smiled in the dark and whispered, "She's wearing my name now." I want it back. I screamed. Jonathan says it was a dream. But I saw the mark on my neck. Another entry, January 30, 1903, Jonathan says we must never dig under the oak. That's where she lies. Not Eliza. Not my daughter. The other one. The other one. I checked the property records. The house had changed hands dozens of times in the last century. Families moved in and out quickly. Few stayed more than a year. There were multiple reports of people going missing, mostly women. The names weren't connected. But I noticed something else. The dates. Every 20 years, within the same 6-month span, a woman went missing after claiming to see a woman in white. It was 2025. The last one was in 2005. My hands were sweating. My heart pounded as I pieced it together. This thing, whatever it was, took someone every 20 years. It marked them. It haunted them. And eventually, it replaced them. That's what the word meant. Replace. I was the next one. But it wasn't random. It was the house. It chose. Or maybe she did. And she wanted her bed back. I drove back to the house one last time. I told myself I'd burn it down. That it would stop her. Stop it. But when I walked through the front door, something felt wrong. Like the house had been waiting. The air was cold. The windows were dark, even though it was only 4 p.m. My bag felt heavy, my legs slow. Then I heard it. Laughter. Not loud. Not hysterical. Just a soft, eerie giggle. Like a child playing hide and seek. I stepped into the hallway. There, standing at the end, was a little girl. The same girl I'd seen before. Pale, barefoot, wearing a dress too thin for the season. She raised a finger to her lips and whispered, "Shoo. You'll wake her up." Before I could react, she vanished into the wall. I ran upstairs to the master bedroom. Everything was as we left it, except for the bed. The sheets were torn, and across the mattress were long, black strands of hair. I walked to the mirror and saw it again, my reflection smiling when I wasn't. And behind me, the woman with hollow eyes. She reached forward, and everything went black. I woke up on the floor. It was morning. Mark was gone. The house was quiet. But something felt different. When I stood up, I felt heavier. Slower. I went to the mirror again. The scratch on my face was gone. But there was something else. My eyes. They looked darker. Hollow. If anyone's reading this, I don't know how much time I have left. Something happened. Something's wrong. I don't know if I'm still me. Or if I've already been replaced. But I found something in the attic today. A photo. Faded and cracked, but clear enough. It was from the early 1900s. A family standing on the front porch of this house. And in the back, barely visible, was a woman in a white dress. She was staring straight at the camera. And she was wearing my face. Since that day, I've been keeping a journal. I write down everything. The dreams. The sightings. The things that don't make sense. I write them to remind myself that it wasn't all in my head, because now, things are starting to blur. Memories I know are mine, feel borrowed. Sometimes, when I think about Mark, I can't remember our wedding day. I can picture the photos in the album, but not how I felt. My mother's voice. I'm not sure it sounds right anymore. Her face keeps shifting in my mind. And then there's the phone call. 2 nights ago, my cell rang at 2:13 a.m. An unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Hello. Static. Then a woman's voice. Sarah. Don't come back. It sounded like me. I froze. Who is this? A pause. Then, you can't come back. I'm already here. The call dropped. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The call history showed nothing. No number. No record. That's when I started to believe something even worse than possession or haunting was happening. What if I was split? What if something crawled out of that grave and became another version of me? A version now living in my house, with my husband, in my skin. What if that Sarah made the call? I had to find proof. Something that could anchor me to reality. So I drove to the Historical Society office in town. They keep old maps, land surveys, archives of everything built in our area since the 1800s. I needed to know what was beneath that oak tree. And why it mattered. The woman behind the counter, Mrs. Levitt, had been there for decades. She looked like she could smell ghosts on people, and when I mentioned our address, her face changed. You're the one living in the Whitmore house? Yes. She stood, slowly, and disappeared into the back without saying another word. She came back with a dusty file. A collection of land surveys, letters, and hand-drawn maps. She flipped through them until she pulled out one with a red X scrawled under the oak tree. This, she said, tapping the X with a bony finger, is where they found her. The first one. Eliza? I asked. No, she said. The woman before Eliza. No one knows her name. They just called her, the stranger. According to the notes, a woman had arrived in town in 1879. Alone. Quiet. Strange. She moved into the Whitmore house as a maid, then disappeared within a year. Her body was found, barely recognizable, buried beneath the oak tree. Her cause of death was never written down. But the pages following that entry were filled with odd observations: sudden cold spells in the house, livestock dying without cause, neighbors hearing someone crying from the basement when no one was inside. Then there was a name, scribbled over and over on a single page, Abigail. Was that her name? I asked. Mrs. Levitt shrugged. Some say it was. Some say that's who she took. Nobody knows. But ever since then, every 20 years, someone in that house disappears. And they're always replaced. Replaced how? She looked at me, like she knew but didn't want to say it out loud. By something else. I drove home shaking. When I pulled into the driveway, Mark's car was there. I didn't go inside. I watched from the window. I saw her. A woman in the kitchen, washing dishes. Wearing my clothes. Her hair was the same. Her build. Her movements. But it wasn't me. And I knew, then, that the house wasn't haunted by a ghost. It was a trap. A breeding ground. A cycle that required someone to take the place of the one before. And it needed two things, someone to remember, and someone to forget. Mark opened the door and looked around, like he knew I was watching. He called out, "Sarah." His eyes scanned the yard. Then he turned and said something I couldn't hear. And the woman inside smiled. That same stretched, wrong smile. It hit me then. That was the twist. The real horror. I wasn't the first Sarah. And I wouldn't be the last. I left town that night. I haven't slept in days. I see her in mirrors, in glass, in puddles. The other me. She follows me now. She whispers things when I close my eyes. That I'm not real. That I was the replacement, all along. And that it's my turn, to be buried. I kept running. Town to town, sleeping in my car, motels, once even under a bridge when I was too scared to check into anywhere with a mirror. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't want to risk her hearing through someone else. But every night, she got closer. The dreams changed. She wasn't watching from far away anymore. She was next to me. Breathing on my neck. Curling her cold fingers around my wrist. Whispering that she wanted my face back. I started to wonder if I even had a face anymore. I bought a hand mirror at a gas station bathroom one morning, just to check. The moment I looked into it, I dropped it. Smashed it. It wasn't me in there. Her eyes were where mine should have been. Her smile just a little too wide. Her skin pale like damp paper. I couldn't breathe. I threw up in the sink. People looked at me strange. One guy whispered, "She's one of them," as I passed. That's when I knew it was spreading. She was pulling pieces of me out into the world. I needed to end it. I went back. I waited until midnight. I parked a mile down the road. I walked through the woods, just like in my first dream. The moon was full, the trees swaying like they were warning me to turn around. I didn't. I had one thing with me, Margaret Whitmore's journal. The only thing that still felt real. When I reached the house, it looked the same. Like nothing had changed. Lights on. Curtains swaying. A fire burning inside. The woman, the other Sarah, stood in the window, brushing her hair. Like she was waiting for me. I dug up the grave again. The same coffin. The same skeleton. But something was different this time. She was smiling. And her hand was missing. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. Mark stood there, eyes blank. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. "I'm not leaving until she's gone." He looked tired. Not angry. Just empty. She's always been here. She made the house. We're all just tenants. I stepped back. You knew. I helped. I didn't want to. But she promised I'd never be alone. That if I helped her, I'd always have you. You don't have me. His face twitched. I know. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, silver key. The attic door. You have to see. I took it, slowly. Inside, everything felt warped. Like the walls were breathing. The photos on the walls had changed. Every one of them showed her face, on my body, posing beside Mark, beside our wedding cake, beside my friends. She had replaced every memory. But not in the attic. I unlocked the door. The air was colder than any place I've ever been. I climbed up, each step creaking like it was screaming. The attic was full of mirrors. Hundreds. Big ones. Cracked ones. Antique hand mirrors. Wall mirrors. All facing inward, like they were trying to trap something in the middle. And in the center, tied to a chair, was me. Hair tangled. Skin pale. Eyes glassy. Mouth stitched shut. I fell to my knees. I didn't even cry. I couldn't. It felt like watching a movie about someone else's pain. But I knew. That was the original me. The one she took. I didn't remember being taken. I didn't remember being stitched. But that didn't matter. Because if she was in the chair, then who the hell was I? I turned. She was behind me. The woman. Me. But better. Prettier. Polished. Smiling with lips red like blood. You're starting to understand, she said. Her voice echoed in my head, like a thought I never had. What are you? I'm the real one, she whispered, I always was. You're just the mold. She raised her hand. My legs froze. My vision blurred. No one remembers the copy, Sarah. She opened her mouth and let out a scream, silent but strong, like it tore through the walls of the world. The mirrors shattered. The lights died. And everything went black. I woke up in bed. The sheets clean. The room bright. Mark was cooking breakfast downstairs. I got up, walked to the mirror. It was me. But was it? The locket was around my neck again. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked outside. The backyard was clean. No grave. No tombstone. Just grass and birds and sunlight. The neighbors waved. I waved back. Mark kissed me on the cheek and asked if I slept well. I nodded. But I still checked the mirror every night before bed. Because sometimes, just for a second, my reflection moves a little too slow. And when I blink, I see the woman with hollow eyes. Smiling from the other side. Waiting. For the next one. And next time. She might keep everything. Forever.